Initiated by ATD Fourth World, during a 3-year period, over 1,000 people on 5 continents were able to share their pain, their resistance, and their initiatives to the violence of extreme poverty which they endure on a daily basis. They were able to merge their knowledge with other relevant professionals, academics, and public policymakers. A number of them came together to draw up conclusions and make proposals during a seminar at ATD Fourth World's International Centre, and also at the UNESCO in Paris.
We are neither recognized nor treated as human beings. As Hurricane Katrina approached New Orleans in the USA, the guards at a prison locked the prisoners in their cells and then left. When the dams broke, the waters rose. The men heard the flood coming, and the water rose higher in their cells. They climbed onto the bunk beds, sure someone would come for them, but no one came.
As soon as we had arrived, they told us that we would be evicted because our presence was a blight on the town. The town had banned us from settling down, but I asked what they were going to do with all these very poor people. Why don't you want us to settle here? We will not threaten public safety. Rather, we will reinforce it. So, the town finally agreed. Just the fact of looking at pictures in books develops the minds of our children.
In
the end, we were chased away so that the train company, Merle, could recover the site.
They
put us in a quarry. They told us they would come and help us and to be patient. But after a while, we had not eaten for 2 weeks.
You were not allowed to leave. There were guards on the gates, and those who left were noted down.
We spent over a year in that hole, even though we were meant to stay for only 3 months. And after a year, they came and picked us up at 4 a.m.
And you were moved to Carrefour?
That is where we really suffered. We did not even have the means to bury our dead. The sick had no one to care for them. The dead were without coffins. We asked ourselves, what should we do? And finally, we decided to leave. Upon our arrival here, the landowners of the village complained and told us we could not salvage material at the landfill. When the mayor arrived, he said we could no longer build houses here, that we had to gather up our belongings and leave right away. I said that these people are not thieves, because I am the one who brought them here. He said I was responsible for these people. We went over there and gathered signatures to sponsor the people. We did not have the right to build, but we were still allowed to build houses in the water where the rice fields were located. I never stopped defending the cause of these families within the village committee, saying that these people are men, not animals.
I have 6 children and 13 grandchildren. I was a good mother, even though people made me feel I wasn't. I was discriminated against, and it was very hard for me to give up my home and to go where people wouldn't treat me badly.
porque toda la vida he vivido sola.
Because I've lived alone all my life, and I've always had to leave my children to go to work and allow them to go to school,
Sus estudios para que en el futuro
in order for them to be good people in the future, and so that they don't let anyone humiliate them like people often did to me.
yo perdí un hijo de 15 años de edad.
Due to the violence in my country, I lost a 15-year-old son, and we never found his body. If I had just stayed at home, crying about what had happened to me, maybe today I would already be dead. In my opinion, staying alone, with just your grief, and without talking about it, with anyone, is the worst thing to do.
When people treat you like dirt, this continual provocation infuriates you and makes you want to respond to the other's contempt, to want to respond to the other's violence. I work in an organization that tries to support children and youth living on the street. I had the opportunity to support a child whose leg was fractured. He was kept for 3 days in hospital. I had to keep following the doctor from room to room. If I had not been there, his leg wouldn't have been put in plaster. Many young people do not dare go to health centers because they are looked down on. And if in addition they do not have the necessary means and are not accompanied, then they're not acknowledged or treated. I have met many people who suffered from not being able to support their families. There are fathers, when night approaches, they have heavy hearts, because they know they will go home empty-handed. They suffer in silence in their family.
During the seminar, we visited a cemetery that had, like most cemeteries in the UK, an area where the destitute poor are buried. There were no gravestones, no names, nothing to show who lay there. In death as in life, the poor had become nothing, as if they had never existed.
Moi, j'ai été placé à l'âge de 2 ans et demi.
I was put into a children's home when I was 2.5 years old. I was surrounded by violence. It wasn't my choice.
Avec les jeunes en institution,
Being in the children's home meant we missed out on a lot of things.
la plupart ils sont morts.
Most are dead or in prison.
Tu sais, c'est difficile.
It's hard when you've been badly treated from a young age.
Très difficile. Et alors à s'en sortir.
And very difficult to get over it.
Parce qu'on
Because nobody explains what's happening.
te dit rien.
No one tells you anything.
On te met un service social
There's social services, but nothing's explained.
et on t'explique rien.
Nobody helps
On
you.
va pas t'aider.
Nobody's going to find you a flat or somewhere to live or anything.
La maison du sans-logis. Allez là, on va me recevoir.
They tell you to go to the homeless shelter,
Qu'avec des...
where you'll be with people who are just as badly off as you.
J'ai été 3 ans dans la rue.
I was homeless for 3
J'ai
years.
dormi dans les
I
usines,
slept in factories, abandoned houses,
abandonnées.
anywhere.
Et j'allais mendier aux portes.
I had to beg for food.
Nous nourrir.
3 years like
3
that.
ans comme ça.
No
Sans
security.
sécurité, sans rien.
I had nothing.
Et pourtant, je m'en suis sorti.
I managed to get through
J'ai
it.
donné à ma fille.
I got my daughter a house.
Moi, c'est encore rien.
I'm not that badly off.
La difficulté, c'est tous ces pauvres gens que...
The problem is all the people we don't know who live in
qui sont dans la
poverty.
misère et qui chaque jour essayent.
We're struggling to survive every day.
Bien sûr, quand on se retrouve au chômage,
Of course, it's really hard when you lose your job. Lots of people I used to know are living in the streets now. That's really hard too.
Alors, où est la beauté?
Where's the beauty in all that? There isn't any. Just people who used to have a job and don't have anything anymore.
In Senegal, there is the issue of not being able to register children at birth. When a woman goes to give birth, she has to pay. When she can't pay, the health centre keeps the birth records.
Si tu n'as pas ça, tu ne pourras jamais enregistrer tes enfants à la mairie.
If you don't have the birth records, you can't register the birth with the authorities. These children can never go to school, can't get an ID, can't vote. If you ask me, it's like denying that they even exist. In one of the neighbourhoods where we go, it took 3 years of work to prove that families wanted to enrol their children in school, but that it takes a lot of preparation work beforehand, such as birth certificates.
On arrive cette année à convaincre après 3 ans.
This year, after a long process, we managed to convince the school to reopen classes where families could pay little by little.
C'est tellement de réussite.
It's been so successful that the head teacher told me that the school will no longer be a community school next year, but a private school.
En sachant que les familles.
We know that the families the classes were reopened for won't be able to send their children there.
Pour moi, c'est une violence extrême.
For me, it's an extreme violence to say to someone, you fought to make the school successful, but now that it is, you're going to be left behind. No time is taken to get to know the neighbourhood, to understand what the families' lives are like. This means that many families in the neighbourhood are left out.
In Orozco today, 85% of parents neither know how to read or write. Someone always has to go with them to take care of administrative matters. When they have to put their thumbprint without knowing what was written on the paper, it's violence.
I lived through the violence of extreme poverty when people ignored my family and me. The hardest thing was the way people looked at you. I can give you the example of the school my little sister went to. She's so shocked that she's afraid to go to school because teachers tell her that she's an incompetent girl, that she'll never succeed in anything. They always make her sit in the back of the classroom. Parents have a hard time sending their children to school on an empty stomach. Some parents are angry and they wonder why the teachers make their children sit in the back. And why other children make fun of them, saying, "You don't know how to learn, that's why you have to sit at the back." But children know how to think and they realise that this isn't normal. They say as much using their own words, but the teacher doesn't listen.
Some people can't talk about the things they've lived through because it's too hard to talk about things they've done to you.
Non, on se met pas en colère. La colère est comme un silence.
No, we don't get openly angry. Our anger is silent.
La colère, elle est là.
And it's deep inside us.
Donc, c'est-à-dire, il n'y a pas d'agressivité, il n'y a pas tout ça.
So there's no outward aggression or anything like that. We are so fed up that we can't even show our anger. So there's just silence. Silence is like the dark.
Et pourtant, on aimerait voir le jour.
We'd like to see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mais on est tellement épuisé.
But we're so tired of fighting that we give up trying. We still feel strong, though.
I came to this community because of the genocide that exterminated and mistreated a whole ethnic group. I was being pursued. This community was considered as a second-class zone, forgotten by all. But ATD brought us together without making any differences. It was like they were our mediator. When people have problems between themselves, ATD social workers visit their families. They comfort those who lost everything during the genocide. Those who participated in the genocide, they tell them that this was a misfortune that fell on the country, that it wasn't an idea that came from their heart, but a law that came from the authorities, that they must reconcile with each other so that they can live as brothers and sisters. The person who has this kind of heart, if we find him and approach him, we can give him advice and he can change, because we are close to him.
Cuando yo conocí el movimiento, yo era una persona tímida.
When I got to know ATD Fourth World, I was shy and didn't talk to others. I didn't share my pain. I understood the pain of others, but couldn't tell them to express it either, because I didn't know how to. But with the knowledge I gained at ATD, I learnt to give support, to help my neighbours, and especially my friends and my children.
We also heard from people from all over the world how they couldn't say what they felt, how they couldn't be a part of decision making because nobody thought they had anything to contribute. When you can't even say what you think and feel, it damages you, it hurts you. And damaged people living together become a damaged community, becomes a damaged society.
Bon, tu poses la question de la paix.
You ask about peace, but you've got to solve the problem of extreme poverty, because as long as there's extreme poverty, you will never have peace.
There was a mobile home under the bridge. There was a family of gypsies who lived there. Every couple of days, the police came to evict them, because these types of people are driven away by everyone. Now they have a home. I knew them when they lived a bit further down, so I carried on speaking to them when they moved under the bridge.
Did many people talk to them?
No, just me and Michel.
Du fait que tu côtoies ces gens-là,
people treat you differently just because you talk to people like that.
Pourquoi? Parce que j'aide quelqu'un.
If you help someone, you bring violence on yourself.
C'est une violence.
Moi, je cherche la paix à travers les autres.
I look for peace through others, inner peace especially, which I don't have in me, because everything I have experienced comes up to the surface, being torn from my parents, from my own family, from my brothers and sisters, being prevented from seeing each other.
The
state did us a lot of harm. It has a duty towards us, but doesn't want to admit it. It is up to them to make the first step. The movement helps me to understand how I can try to progress, to try and speak more calmly and say fairer things, without losing my temper with the social services, the state and all that. It's not a good image to give to your children when they see their mother angry and exasperated. It's not an example that I want to show them.
For me, peace means being safe in my family, joy and especially togetherness. That's what helps us fight. And if I personally give up, my family is going to give up too. For us to have peace, the way people see us has to change. I personally think that you have to know us before judging us.
Mon village, c'est un village qui fin relogé.
My village is a rehousing village. When we came, everyone was able to have a house, but everybody was scattered around. Everyone goes back home and doesn't know their neighbours, and the community centre is closed. It took me 3 years to rebuild this solidarity. We can't just speak about peace if we don't mean it. It has to be in our hearts. In an Oscar, I don't think straight away of my sister or my mum. I try to treat everyone the same. I was already poor in my neighbourhood. I was living in extreme poverty. What I want to share with others is what we can do together for the village. We find out a lot of things through education, and each time I meet a child, I try to explain this to him.
I know that families were motivated by this workshop. It helped them find a bit of peace, because we could share what we learned, what we discussed, with our families. We exchanged our good and bad experiences. Managing to be together in a community is already a great success and a source of strength, because one person alone cannot think properly.
You know, with the genocide we had, there are loads of people without housing.
I came to help out, because I myself was very much alone during 12 years.
When you are no longer alone, anything is possible. Solidarity allows you to find your intelligence once again. You calm down. You live more peacefully with others. My drops of sweat in my neighbour's field speaks louder than any words.
Et au camp pénal où j'ai passé longtemps.
In the penal camp, where I stayed for a long time, we experienced extreme violence. But nevertheless, we were conscious that we were in it together. We started to support each other and teach those who cannot read to read, do theatre, sculpture and gardening.
Et quand tu te rends compte que tu peux aussi faire quelque chose de beau.
When you realize that you too can do something good, then it causes you to raise your head, to feel human again.
Bon, pour moi, la paix,
for me, peace is to live one's life without having to tread on anyone and without being trod on by anyone else. If we take the weakest in society into consideration, then we cannot but build peace, because they would be at the heart of all our projects.
Now, the time has come to break the silence. If we remain silent at this time, I think it is a crime. Now, the moment to speak, the moment to raise our voices has arrived.
Comment pouvons-nous honorer le courage illimité?
How can we honour the infinite courage of those who are imprisoned, surrounded by extreme poverty, and who find the strength, night and day, to find ways to speak together, to build peace? All these parents who spend nights negotiating with desperate young people, and we never hear a word about this on television. And we owe it to people like those living in Haiti, humiliated and at the mercy of international aid, an aid run by managers who believe that just because they're bringing in funding, they do not need to think together with the Haitian people.
Faites ensemble ak men en main, n'a bâti yon lot demain. Côté justice, paix, main, tout bon va, rive jamais.
La paix, elle va commencer le jour.
You'll have peace when you realize that the person opposite you is the same as you, a human being to be respected.
Un être humain à respecter.
Then you'll have peace.
Faites ensemble ak men en main, n'a bâti yon lot demain. Côté justice, paix, main, tout bon va, rive jamais.